Nobody tells you this, but the most intelligent people you'll ever meet often don't seem intelligent at all. They seem distracted, overly quiet, strangely sensitive, sometimes even a little lost. And that's not a coincidence, because real intelligence, the deep, cognitive kind that researchers actually study, doesn't announce itself. It hides inside behaviors that most of us were taught to see as flaws. So if you've ever been told you think too much, feel too much, or just never seem to fit quite right, stay with me, because this video might reframe everything you thought you knew about your own mind. Here are 10 hidden signs of genuine high intelligence. The first sign is that you feel emotions more intensely than other people seem to. Most people assume intelligence is cold, logical, detached from feeling. But research tells a very different story. Studies in neuropsychology have found that high cognitive ability is often paired with heightened emotional sensitivity. The same neural architecture that allows for deep analytical thinking also picks up emotional signals with greater intensity. In other words, your brain doesn't just process information faster, it processes everything faster, including pain, joy, empathy, and grief. So, if you've always felt things more deeply than the people around you, that's not emotional weakness. That may actually be your brain operating at a higher resolution than most. The second sign is that you get bored fast, and not just with people, with ideas, routines, and entire phases of your life. Psychologists describe this as a low tolerance for understimulation, and it shows up consistently in high IQ individuals. When your brain is used to processing complex information, it becomes almost allergic to simplicity. Repetition feels physically uncomfortable. Routines that other people find comforting feel like a slow form of suffocation to you. This isn't restlessness. It's a brain demanding to be fed. The third sign is that you ask questions that make other people uncomfortable. Not aggressive questions, not rude ones, just honest ones. Why does this system work this way? Why do we all agree to something that clearly isn't working? Has anyone actually thought this through? Highly intelligent people have a low tolerance for assumptions. Their minds instinctively push past the surface of accepted ideas and ask what's actually underneath. And to people who've never done that, those questions feel threatening. But you weren't trying to challenge anyone. You were just thinking out loud. The fourth sign is that you have a complicated relationship with sleep. This is one of the most consistent patterns in intelligence research. High IQ individuals disproportionately report difficulty falling asleep, not from anxiety, but because their minds refuse to go quiet. The moment the external world slows down, the internal world accelerates. Your best ideas arrive at midnight. Your most honest thinking happens between 1 a.m. and 3 a.m. when everyone else is unconscious. Neuroscientists link this to higher levels of cortical arousal. Essentially, a brain that is biologically wired to stay more active than average, even at rest. You don't have a sleep problem. You have an active mind that society has given no good outlet for. The fifth sign is that you reread your own messages before sending them, and then edit them, and then sometimes delete them entirely and say nothing. This is a behavior rooted in something called meta-communication, the cognitive ability to hear your own words the way someone else will hear them before you've even said them. Most people say things and then observe the reaction. Highly intelligent people simulate the reaction first and self-edit based on what they predict. It looks like social anxiety from the outside, but internally, It's an advanced form of perspective taking that most people simply don't do. The sixth sign is that you find it genuinely difficult to hate people. Even people who've hurt you. Even people who probably deserve it. This isn't weakness or people-pleasing. It's the result of a mind that's too good at understanding context. When you try to hate someone, your brain automatically starts generating reasons why they became who they are, what they went through, what made them act the way they did. Psychologists call this cognitive empathy, and it correlates strongly with higher intellectual ability. Understanding someone and forgiving them aren't the same thing, but a mind that can hold complexity rarely settles for simple anger. The seventh sign is that you've changed your core beliefs more than once, and most people in your life found that unsettling. But here's what cognitive science actually says about this. The ability to update deeply held beliefs when confronted with new evidence is one of the strongest indicators of fluid intelligence. The raw, adaptable kind that isn't tied to what you already know. Rigid thinking feels like strength, but psychologically, it's fragility. A mind that can change isn't unstable. It's operating exactly the way a high-functioning brain should. The eighth sign is that humor comes easily to you, but it's often too fast for the room. Real humor, the structural kind, requires the brain to hold two conflicting ideas simultaneously, feel the tension between them, and then collapse that tension in an unexpected direction. That's not a simple operation. It requires working memory, pattern recognition, and creative cognition all firing at once. Research has consistently found a strong correlation between verbal intelligence and the ability to generate and appreciate complex humor. If people often laugh at something you said a few seconds after you said it, that delay is the gap between your processing speed and theirs. The ninth sign is that you feel the weight of unsaid things in conversations. Not just what people say, but what they're avoiding, what they almost said, what the silence between their words is actually about. This is called inferential listening, and it's far rarer than it sounds. Most people hear the words. You hear the meaning underneath the words, and sometimes the meaning underneath the meaning. This can make conversation feel exhausting in a way that's hard to explain to someone who doesn't experience it. Because you're not just having one conversation, you're having three at once. And the 10th sign, perhaps the hardest one to carry, is that you've always felt slightly out of step with the world around you. Not dramatically, not in a way that makes for a good story, just quietly, persistently. Like you're watching the same movie as everyone else, but reading a different version of the script. Research across multiple studies consistently finds that high IQ individuals report lower satisfaction with conventional social structures. Not because they're antisocial, but because their minds process the underlying assumptions of those structures and find them lacking. You're not broken. You're not difficult. You're not too much. You are simply a mind that was built to see things most people were never designed to look for. And that kind of mind, throughout history, has always felt a little lonely. But it has also always been the kind of mind the world quietly depends on. Intelligence doesn't always look like confidence. Sometimes it looks like doubt. Sometimes it looks like silence in a room full of noise. Sometimes it looks like a person lying awake at 2 a.m., not struggling, but thinking, because their brain has never learned how to stop caring about what's true. If any of this felt less like new information and more like someone finally putting words to something you already knew, then maybe you've always understood yourself more than you thought. You just needed someone to confirm what you already felt.